Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today we're going to continue getting to the roots of plant idioms. Last time we talked about some idioms that talk about plants. We talked about nipping something in the bud, to turn over a new leaf, to beat around the bush, as well as the original phrase itself, to get to the root of something, to get to the base of something, to figure out exactly what's going on. But today, of course, we've got some new idioms to talk about. And one of these, I think you said last time that one of them you weren't too familiar with. I think that's the Primrose Path.
That's right.
I had heard that before. It was, of course, used in Hamlet. I think Ophelia said that to Hamlet or no, not to Hamlet, to her brother Laertes, I think, as he was about to get on a boat and head for France. She said that to him, who wrecks his own reed or something like that. I can't remember too clearly. But in any case, these are some idioms that involve plants.
See, I thought leading someone down the Primrose Path was like misleading them into something bad for them that they weren't aware of. But I was wrong. We're going to find out what the real definition is. So right now we're going to read through the lesson and then we'll be back to kind of break down some of these idioms, of course, and some of these other vocabulary words that will be helpful to you. Stop and smell the roses. In this modern age, many people are progress-focused, always hastening to the next thing. However, more and more people want to embrace a slower-paced life and delight in the things around them. To stop and smell the roses is a metaphor for this. It was derived from a quote in the 1956 autobiography of Walter Hagen, a famous American golfer. He wrote, "Don't hurry, don't worry, and be sure to smell the flowers along the way." Example: You've been working so hard lately. Don't forget to stop and smell the roses. Pushing up daisies. Several different terms, such as pushing up daisies, use poetic imagery to describe death. Daisies grow easily, and so they were often planted on graves. This phrase arose during World War I, where it was used by British soldiers. Nowadays, pushing up daisies is considered a euphemism, used to describe death in a more pleasant or even humorous manner. Example: Mr. Smith is old, but he's not pushing up daisies yet. The Primrose Path. The meaning of the Primrose Path is not immediately apparent, as the flowery imagery conceals a deeper meaning. This phrase was first used by the famous playwright William Shakespeare in the play Hamlet. It means choices that seem easy and effective, but inevitably lead to negative consequences. Simply put, it means trying to take the lazy way out, but suffering for it. Example: Students who choose the Primrose Path by cheating on this exam will be expelled from school. Now that we've dug down and discovered the roots of these phrases, you can try them for yourself. No green thumbs are necessary.
Okay, everybody, let's talk about the contents of today's lesson right now. The first idiom we're going to talk about that has to do with plants is stop and smell the roses. Don't get too close, though, and don't smell the stems, or you might get a thorn in your nose.
Ow.
But indeed, this phrase is quite common in the modern age. Many people are progress-focused, always hastening to the next thing. So if you're progress-focused, that means you're ambitious in your career. You want to get ahead, so you're always hastening to the next thing. To hasten here just means to hurry. It's a fancy way of saying you're in a hurry, using things when you don't need to. So, hey, take your time. Haste makes waste. If you hurry up with things too much, you're going to make a mess of things. But that doesn't really have anything to do with plant idioms. I just thought I'd mention that in passing. You're always hastening to the next thing. We never stop and smell the roses.
I love this one. I don't stop and smell the roses enough. I also wanted to just mention hastening's a little bit of an old-fashioned word. I think if you're into novels that were written in the 1800s, 1900s, you'll see more of this verb being used. She hastened to the cottage to see what was going on or whatever. Today in modern English, we use hurry a lot more, but hasten is a great word, and we will use haste makes waste, which is another idiom.
Right. Most people know what it means, but again, it's used in literary contexts and in fancy writing.
Yes.
And yes, indeed, we're always in a hurry to get to the next thing. However, more and more people want to embrace a slower-paced life and delight in the things around them. Yes, indeed, we want to get away from the rat race, where we're competing for jobs and we're trying to get to work and get to that parking spot before that other guy gets it. We're always in a big hurry. So a lot of people are thinking, hey, wait a minute, slow down. Stop the world. I want to get off. I want to stop and enjoy things and quit being in such a big hurry. It's stressful. I'm having heart problems as a result. Yeah, I need to go for a hike in the mountains and just enjoy life a little bit. I want to embrace a slower-paced, more relaxing life and delight in all the wonderful things around me. To delight in something means to basically enjoy it, to appreciate it, to look at it, to smell it, to taste it, and go, wow, this is really cool. I'd like to spend time delighting in this thing. Like here in Taiwan, of course, lots of people delight in drinking oolong tea.
I think anything you can do to get rid of the stress in your life is going to be beneficial to you, especially for your health. I know that's the truth out there. So you want to stop and smell the roses, get out there in nature. It's not just, smelling what's out in nature. You might not be taking enough time with your kids. Your kids are going to be grown and out of the house before you even know it. And so it's sad that some parents are so busy working that they kind of miss out on some of the important parts of their own kids' lives. And then they look back and they think, wow, I wish I'd taken more advantage of the time I had with them. Now, it says this particular idiom was derived from a quote in an autobiography that was written back in 1956. So it's a fairly new idiom, really, compared to some of these others. If you derive something from something, just means that's where you got it from. You received it from that source, or you obtained it from that source. You can trace back where you got something to that place. It was derived from. So it's a quote in a book. And if you're talking about an autobiography, not just a biography, but an autobiography, it means that that particular book was written by the subject himself. So Walter Hagen, a very famous American golfer, I'm not into golf, so I don't know him, sorry. He actually wrote his own life story and published it, and it's called an autobiography. And again, that's where this quote comes from.
Exactly. And again, this phrase was derived from that quote. For derived, I could say, this cough syrup is derived from a kind of fruit. And here, of course, this phrase was derived from a quote that he wrote in his autobiography. And he wrote, "Don't hurry, don't worry, and be sure to smell the flowers along the way." And over time, people started talking about roses. Stop and smell the roses. Nobody will say, stop and smell the camellias, or stop and smell the tulips.
No.
You could say that.
Tulips don't smell, but yeah.
I don't know much about tulips, even though I have Dutch ancestry. But in any case, people mostly say, stop and smell the roses.
They do. But it's a great phrase. Here's the example that our author has given us. You've been working so hard lately. Don't forget to stop and smell the roses. Yeah, you need to take some time just to enjoy life, get outside. I know that anytime I'm outside, especially if the weather isn't so hot, I just can relax more. I like to go to the park and walk around and just, breathe deeply. Hopefully the pollution's not so bad that day. But yeah, whatever you can do to slow the pace of your life is going to help you live a happier, probably longer life.
Right, and that's very optimistic, but now we're going to get a little darker and talk about death when life stops. And we've got a phrase here called pushing up daisies. Okay, there are a lot of phrases that we use to describe death, but this one, is referring to plants, and daisies, those are kinds of flowers that grow pretty easily. And several different terms, such as pushing up daisies, use poetic imagery to describe death. Yes, indeed, you could say someone punched out, they bought the farm. What else can we say? They are 6 feet under. There are various ways to describe death. But this one's kind of poetic, which means it's expressive in a poetic way. And yes, indeed, we do use poetic imagery or images in writing to describe death. I think mostly because people are kind of afraid of it. So if we use a fancy way to describe it, maybe it's not so scary after all.
Well, it's kind of a pretty way to describe it. People love flowers. Daisies are beautiful. They can grow naturally in so many different places. So I can see why this one's popular. Yeah, so if someone's pushing up daisies, they are no longer on this earth. They have passed away. So poetic imagery. Sometimes we do use very flowery or beautiful images to describe something that isn't so pleasant, like death. No one likes to lose someone that they're close to, especially. It's always hard. So daisies, it says, grow easily. They do. And once you plant them, they seem to come up the next year without any help. And so they were often planted on graves. A grave is the site where someone's body is buried. It's usually buried in a coffin. That's kind of an old-fashioned word. Or casket. We use casket more broadly these days than coffin. Coffin's kind of the scary term.
Yeah, that's what a vampire is, in a coffin. But yeah, most people are buried in caskets inside a crypt, I guess, which is a cement covering. But we don't have time to talk about that too much. But daisies are often planted on graves to decorate them. And so when people go to visit the graves of their loved ones, they won't feel so sad because there are some pretty daisies there.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the midway point in our lesson for today. So let's take a break right now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天带大家看了几个有关于植物的片语，例如 nip something in the bud 防患未然，或者是 turn over a new leaf 是改过自新啊，重新开始的意思。还有 beat around the bush 就是所谓拐弯抹角啊，或者甚至旁敲侧击，都有跟植物有关。今天还有3个跟植物有关的片语，例如第一个 stop and smell the roses 停下脚步享受生活，真的蛮有字面上的意思哦。因为现在大家都速度很快啊，然后很多事情啊赶着要去做啊，那这样子很多人都希望能够稍微节奏慢一点，是不是可以享受生活呢？我们刚刚讲的其实都出现在片语的解释里面。不过在第一句当中，我们看到一个复合形容词，在逗点前面有一个 progressed focused， 这个 progress 就是所谓的过程，逗点之后这个连接词后面的 focused 是 PP， 为什么会这样子呢？因为其实 focus 这个字它本身有使什么东西聚焦在另外一件事情上，那这个什么东西有时候可以指的是自己，也就是 focus 这个字有时候可以用成 focus oneself on something，所以它可以变成一个名词连字号再加上 PP 的复合形容词，所以很多人都是以进步为重 progress focused， 然后呢永远都是赶着下一件事情。不过在这句话当中，逗点之后 always hastening 它其实也是分词构句哦。这个分词构句就是逗点之后连接词的 and 省略，把原本动词的 hasten换成是动词 ing。 好，那大家都希望能够稍微慢下来嘛，那这个稍微慢下来在第二句也有出现一个复合形容词叫做 slower paced。 有一种复合形容词的规则就是形容词连字号再加上名词 ed， 像我们现在看到的 slower paced 就算是其中一种。那接下来呢，我们就可以看到最后面第3句有一个 metaphor， 我们刚刚说这是一个隐喻啦，因为停下来闻一闻玫瑰花的香味。在中文当中也有隐喻或者是明喻的用法，隐喻就是没有看到 like， 英文叫做 metaphor， 出现在第3句。那明喻呢，则是有把像讲出来哦，就好像是如何如何，只要看到关键字的像，就是说明了我在比喻，所以叫明喻。英文叫做 simile， simile， simile。 接下来是我们的第二个片语咯，第二个片语是 pushing up daisies。 所谓的 daisy 就是雏菊的意思，这个片语在字面上好像是要把雏菊往上推，难道是促进雏菊的生长的意思吗？
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about different plant idioms, and this is day 2. We started out with stop and smell the roses. People are just moving so fast in life these days. They've got their list of things they want to accomplish that they rarely take the time just to notice what's going on around them. For example, flowers, As I was coming to work, though, today, I saw a couple who were outside. I'm very close to Da'an, 森林公园. And there was just this couple, and they were on the bench, and they weren't really talking to each other. They did not have phones, and they were just kind of taking in the day. It was a nice day.
Taking it all in, as we say. They were enjoying the day. And yes, we do need to do that more often, but my goodness, that phone has so many fun things on it to look at. We've got to check our email and look at the latest TikTok videos. That's a pity. But in any case here, yes, we just finished talking about pushing up daisies. It's a soft way or a pretty way of referring to death. And yes, you can plant daisies on graves because they grow so easily. And this phrase arose or came about during World War I, where it was used by British soldiers. And nowadays, pushing up daisies is considered a euphemism used to describe death in a more pleasant or even humorous manner. Now, here we've got the word euphemism, and that's kind of a mild way of describing something, so it's not so strong. You could say, oh, he died, he passed away, he punched out. But a more poetic way to say this, or a euphemistic way to say it, would be, oh, he's pushing up daisies, which is kind of pretty because you're actually talking about flowers.
Yeah, I know in business we have a lot of euphemisms for things that aren't so pleasant. For example, if a company is laying off people, they're firing people or letting them go because of financial problems that the company's having, they'll call it downsizing, as if it makes it a better thing for people. It doesn't, but we tend to put nicer sounding words and use those instead of something that's a little more harsh. Instead of saying someone's fat, you might just say, well, they're stout, or they're stocky. That's another word we would use sometimes. So we have lots of euphemisms. I don't know about the Chinese language if they have euphemisms like we do, but
I would assume they would.
We have a lot.
Another example I'm thinking of is a janitor. That's a person who takes out the garbage and cleans toilets and mops and sweeps the floor and stuff like that. We have a euphemism for a janitor, and that is sanitation engineer. Okay, I don't think they actually use that too often, but that's an example of a euphemism. And again, pushing up daisies is a euphemism to describe death in a more pleasant or even humorous manner. And here we have the example sentence. Mr. Smith is old, but he's not pushing up daisies yet, which means he hasn't passed away yet. He hasn't punched out yet. He's still alive and kicking.
Yeah, if you kick the bucket, that also means you've died. So, he kicked the bucket last Tuesday. You only use those kind of funny phrases, though, for someone you don't know. Don't use those for someone that you actually are fond of or attached to, because death can be a hard thing for people.
Or someone else who they're attached to. Oh, your uncle punched out, huh? I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
you wouldn't say that. You'd say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that your uncle passed away.
Yeah. So here's the next one, guys, and this is the one I wasn't really sure about. So it comes last. It's a good one, though, and Mr. William Shakespeare is responsible for this one. It was derived from his play Hamlet, which is probably his most famous play of all time. He's got some good ones, I must say. A lot of our English phrases, idioms, sayings, cute turns of phrases are from Mr. Shakespeare, who was brilliant, in my opinion. And we can thank him for a lot of a lot of interesting ways to speak English. They go back to him. So what's the Primrose Path? Well, the meaning is not immediately apparent. If something's apparent, it's very obvious to you. You don't need anyone to explain something to you. It's apparent. Maybe you've had a coworker and he came in late and his eyes are all bloodshot and he looks like, he just got up, a couple minutes ago. It's apparent that he had a bad night or she had a bad night, or maybe they're not feeling well. It's apparent. You don't need any other signs or pieces of evidence. It's pretty clear as to what you're seeing. So the meaning is not immediately apparent. We really don't know what this could possibly mean just by looking at it. The Primrose Path.
Yeah, it's not obvious, it's not apparent because the flowery imagery conceals a deeper meaning. Flowery is a difficult word to pronounce. That's why you're probably mostly going to see it in writing, and it's difficult to say flowery imagery.
Oh, but Tom, what's really hard is to say flowery imagery together. That's hard.
It is difficult, so we've got it written down here. It just refers to something that looks like a flower, and the primrose is a kind of plant that produces yellow flowers, and it's quite common in Europe, but it conceals or hides a deeper meaning. To conceal means to hide something, usually on purpose. For example, you might conceal the evidence inside your car so the police can't find it and throw you in jail. And here it hides a deeper meaning. This phrase was first used by the famous playwright William Shakespeare in the play Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. And it means choices that seem easy and effective, but inevitably lead to negative consequences. So that's what it means, the Primrose Path. It means that, hey, this will be something very easy. It will be very effective, but in the end, or inevitably, it will lead to negative consequences. It won't be so great in the end.
Yeah, I have an example. Maybe you know somebody who really likes to gamble too much, a little too much. And so you could say, unaware of his potential fall into debt, he continued down his primrose path. Maybe you know someone who likes to gamble. That can be kind of a dangerous path to go down. It starts out looking like it's great. There's something appealing about it. But after you start going down that path, you realize the consequences are bad.
Right, and of course it inevitably leads to negative consequences. You could say unavoidably. It's your destiny, it's your fate. You're going to have negative consequences. Something bad is going to happen to you. And simply put, to just explain it to you in a very simple way, it means trying to take the lazy way out, but suffering for it. So oftentimes we do try to take the lazy way out. Maybe we decide to cheat on a test or something just so we can pass the class. But of course, we didn't learn the lesson very well. And in the future, of course, we suffered for it when we started a job and didn't know what the heck we were supposed to do. And yes, indeed, you try to take the lazy way out, but you suffer for it in the end.
Yeah, so this adverb here, inevitably just means it's going to happen. It's certain to happen. It's unavoidable. There's no way around it. We see the adjective form more often, I think, inevitable. It was inevitable that he would be depressed after his father passed away, or it was inevitable that after starving himself all day, that he would eat like a pig at night for dinner. So it was just bound to happen. There was no way to avoid it. Inevitable and inevitably.
And here's an example. Students who choose the Primrose Path by cheating on this exam will be expelled from school. Of course, you have to get caught first, but yeah, you shouldn't try because everybody else is keeping eyes on you, keeping tabs on you, so don't try to cheat on a test. It doesn't do anybody any good. Now, here's the final paragraph, how we wrap things up. It says, now that we've dug down and discovered the roots of these phrases, you can try them for yourself. No green thumbs are necessary. And that's another way to describe something. If you have a green thumb, that means you're good with plants, especially in the garden. I think British people say no green fingers. I have green fingers, which means I work very well in the garden, but Americans say I have a green thumb.
Yeah, I have a green thumb. I have a green thumb for plants, but not so much flowers. We'll see. I'm trying flowers this year to see if I can become any better at it. So now that we've dug down and discovered the roots of these phrases, you can try them for yourself. And our author ends with, no green thumbs are necessary. Even if you're not good with plants, no worries. This just is just part of learning English. We hope you enjoy these idioms, though.
We certainly do hope so. And now it's time for us to listen to our Chinese teacher.
其实好像真的有一点点这个意思，因为像在文章里面的第2句啊，就告诉我们雏菊其实是很容易生长，所以常常会被种在坟墓上面嘛。所以这个片语其实就是很意象式的来描述死亡。当一个人死亡，然后呢躺在棺材里面，埋在土里面的时候，好像就是把雏菊往上推啊，在种雏菊的意思。它是一种比较委婉的描述死亡这样子的意思。可是这边的话，我们要特别注意一下第3句哦。第3句告诉我们说，这个片语其实起源于第1次世界大战的期间，当时啊，英国士兵很喜欢这样子使用。我们在第3句看到一个动词叫做 arose， 当然这是过去式，它的动词原形是 arise， A-R-I-S-E。那这句呢，可能还要特别注意一下，逗点之后出现一个 where的补充说明性非限定用法的关系子句，在这里的逗点 where 呢，指的是在第1次世界大战的那个状况之下。It was used by Britain's soldiers. 我们之前曾经有说过啊，逗点之后如果看到的是官复的话，会加上完整的句子。好，完整的句子，也就是有主词 it by 这个介系词后面也有受词了 British soldiers。不过啊，我们说到这个完语哦。接下来这句话当中 nowadays 第4句话当中，现在大家都说它是一个完语嘛，就是委婉的描述死亡，要不然讲 die death 好像很露骨。那这个完语呢，大家一定要注意一下，叫做 euphemism。例如在餐厅当中啊，假设有一个标语叫做 don't smoke no smoking， 就很直接很直白了。可是如果你看到的是 thank you for not smoking，那这就是一个 euphemism， 就是婉语，它不是真的要谢谢你的意思，而是婉转的提醒你，请不要抽烟哦 euphemism。 好，那接下来第3个就是 the Primrose Path， 字面上是报春花之路。这个花有什么样的意义吗？没有啦，其实啊，它是由哈姆雷特这个戏剧当中啊，莎士比亚因为呢这个很有名嘛，所以常常这样子来使用呢，后来就出现了所谓的报春花之路。它指的就是选择一条比较好走的、舒适的、比较简单有效的一种选择，但是不可避免可能会导致一些负面的后果。也就是说，有一点点意味着采取一种偷懒的方式，但是可能会有苦果哦。我们在这里要特别注意一下第3句的导致。导致的片语有很多，在英文当中，除了在这里看到的 lead to something to 介系词之外，还有 result in result 加上 in， 还有 bring about bring 再加上 about about。接下来是3个字的 give rise to give rise rise 也是介系词的 to， 这个就有导致什么样的结果。希望以上2天活用的植物片语让你收获满满哦。我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's all the time we have for today, everybody. Thank you for joining us and good luck with these plant idioms. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.